Hello everybody. You're my third gig today, so I've had students appear of the realm today, so you guys are much, much easier, so thank you for having me. So, as we're in the ice tank, I'm going to do a quick icebreaker. So, hands up who's married? Okay, who's got kids? Teenagers? Okay, so lots of negotiators and collaborators already, so well done. So, I have an 18-year-old daughter at home, and she's taught me a lot about my day job. In fact, my day job is much, much easier than being a parent, as any of you teenagers will know. But the things she's taught me about my day job are extremely interesting. Firstly, she's taught me that the world is not the same anymore. The internet, the days before internet, they're not going to come back. It is different now. And secondly, the things that we say, and the way that we say, the way we communicate them, they're out there, and they're out there as your footprint forever. So what's that got to do with tonight, really and truthfully? The job that I do is about how we collaborate and communicate in the advertising industry. I'm not going to talk about the differences in advertising for those of you who know or don't know, because actually that's not going to mean an awful lot to you. But the advertising industry is responsible for an enormous contribution to our country. So we have advertisers spend about 16 billion, and that generates about 100 billion GDP for this country. So in real terms, for every £1 spent on advertising, that's £6 back in the country's pocket. It's quite an incredible sum. Creative industries are a very big part of what we do. So we have to think very carefully about what we say in those messages. And it's not necessarily about the crap that comes through the letterbox necessarily. There is actually another organisation that deals with all that crap. But it's also about our right to communicate and our right to self-regulate. So I sit on a number of committees that are the reporting to government. And it's very serious stuff, because we're responsible, effectively like the Parliament of communication. So the job that I have to do is to decide and to help the advertising community decide what is a good thing to say and how we protect that right to communicate. So if we think about all the adverts that we see at the moment, you've probably heard about Jamie Oliver talking about high fat, salt and sugar. So Jamie is very concerned about the sugar in the drinks that we all drink, or children drink. You've got to think about the fact that no brand sets out to make a child fat. Can you imagine that ad? That would not be a good ad, would it? So eat this and you'll be obese in 30 days. That's no fun. That's not what we want to do. But we are responsible for communicating. And currently, the advertising industry self-regulates itself, in which government doesn't interfere with what we do. But they rely on us as a group of bodies to make sure that we do it right. And we want to make sure that we protect that right. Because I tell you what, if we get it wrong, then you hear about those things where the Advertising Association Authority gets involved and they start really coming down very heavily. We want to make sure that people are behaving well so we can continue to communicate in a really creative and innovative way. So, if you think about all those kind of campaigns that actually mean something. So you take the McDonald's Happy Meal book programme. So I'm sure your kids have had Happy Meals. Everybody does. There's no great sin in that. But all those books in those Happy Meal promotions, I'm sure some of you have picked up, represents one of the biggest reading campaigns in this country. So how scary is that? Or is it scary? Is it something that we're actually going to pay forward for people? Is it a really wonderful example of innovation about how a brand can take something to the marketplace? And how do you look after it? Equally, we want to make sure that when we're going out there in the marketplace to help brands and advertisers understand what's good and what's right, it doesn't always have to come from a defensive position. We also want to come from a position where we're going to collaborate with those people before there is a problem. Huge amount of work in the industry about the image of women, for example, and that's heading off a problem of the past before we start having rules and regulations that stop us communicating in a creative way. But all of that means that there are lots and lots of rules and regulations that you probably don't see or hear about, but we also have to make sure that we are protecting that right in a way that helps us get to a good place. So when we are thinking about what is working and what's not, one of the areas that I would get very heavily involved in is where the House of Commons wants to debate. So at the moment we're working with David Cameron on the area of high fat, salt and sugar, and also about immersive content online. So for anyone involved in the digital space, we're trying to understand about how we can help children who possibly don't even think they're seeing an advertisement understand the difference between the two. We understand cognitive behaviour and the different areas where we have to put some of those rules in place. So that all sounds probably quite heavy-handed, but it's not heavy-handed in the fact that you want to make sure that the adverts you see on TV are going to work for you, and that the brand message that comes across actually is not something that's going to be offensive or taking you to a place mentally that you don't want to be. So I'm looking like I've got about 4 minutes, definitely going to be under. But one of the areas in our industry in terms of collaboration are the amount of bodies that work behind the scenes. So there are probably about 20 different bodies that get involved in this space, which is an incredible amount of people to collaborate with. So some of it is government-led, and some of it are areas like the advertising practitioners, and different areas like the Direct Marketing Association, who are definitely responsible for the crap that comes through your letterbox. But if we don't collaborate and we don't work it out between ourselves, then you will have an industry that's going to be devoid of messages, which would be very, very sad, and it would be very sad for the creative industry. So, for example, in Scotland at the moment, we're looking at a result of the devolution of power. So, very sensibly, Scotland would really like to have a complete watershed about anything to do with children. No advertising near a children's playground, and we'd all agree that was a really good idea. But they want to put something in place that means that there is literally no promotion or no advertising whatsoever. And if you think back to that contribution of GDP into this country, and you suddenly make Scotland like a completely different market for advertising, that's going to be a big hole in the economy. We want to try and head that off at the pass and work constructively with people so they're not putting such a heavy-handed view on it. Because if we do, all those wonderful rugby shirts with Guinness on them or any other kind of branding on them, all that sponsorship will go. That will affect sport. It will also probably positively affect alcohol in Scotland. However, it will take us to a place where it will be very barren and it will be very much censorship, and we don't want to go there. So part of that job, and my job for collaboration, is to make sure that we take a sensible and measured view. And I have to say that having come from marketing industry, making TV ads, all those things for years and years, and coming into this side, it is a huge minefield, but it's a really exciting one. And so the result of the kind of work that I do every day is seen out there, and hopefully you'll see a lot more of it coming through next year, because it'll be the year about anti-obesity next year. So I'm very heavily involved in what you'll see in terms of positive messages about how we communicate. So I really hope we're going to get there. And I'm definitely going to cut it off now in 2 minutes. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that's been informative and useful for you. Give you back your 2 minutes.